Israeli media are reporting that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to suspend controversial plans to overhaul the judiciary. That's according to sources in his Likud party. Opposition to the plans escalated on Sunday after Netanyahu fired his defense minister for speaking out against the proposed reforms. Israel has seen sustained protests since the overhaul was announced months ago. The plan would allow Parliament to override Supreme Court decisions. And for more on this, let's go straight to Rebecca Ritters, who's in Jerusalem. Rebecca, Netanyahu has postponed his statement. Is he going to address the nation today?
Well, that's right, Nicole. We were expecting him around about 10 o'clock this morning. That was postponed to 10:30 and it's been postponed again. We can only assume that the talks that are going on behind the scenes are heated, that there is no consensus. What we were expecting and what was being widely reported from sources leaked from his own Likud party was that Benjamin Netanyahu was indeed going to bow to pressure, the building pressure that's happening within the country to suspend the legislation or to suspend the vote on the legislation that was due to take place today. We were hearing that he was going to make an announcement to say that would indeed be what was happening. But as I said, this keeps being postponed. So we can only imagine that there are fierce negotiations going on behind the scenes. We are starting to hear rumours, but I really hasten to add that these are all rumours. We have nothing confirmed that some members of one of the far-right parties in the coalition, that make up the coalition, is now leaning towards supporting a suspension, but definitely other members of another far-right party saying that they will not accept a suspension. We've got the ultra-Orthodox party saying that they would accept whatever Benjamin Netanyahu is going to go ahead. But, Nicole, what we are seeing in this country is unprecedented. Today we've seen nationwide a nationwide strike. We've seen the airport being shut down, affecting some 74,000 passengers. All incoming and outgoing flights have been suspended. We've got hospitals saying that they will strike as of tomorrow and only be available for emergency care if these reforms are not being suspended. If the reforms are not being suspended. So really unprecedented action that come in the wake of last night's spontaneous protests in the streets across the country. So really some huge action, and Benjamin Netanyahu really having to make some decisions this morning to see what will happen. We wait. It remains to be seen what is going to happen.
Yeah, the pressure is definitely growing. We'll return to you, Rebecca, in a second. But first, let's take a look at the latest developments that led us here.
Anger on the streets of Tel Aviv, where protesters blocked a major highway and lit large bonfires. In Jerusalem, police used water cannon to disperse protesters outside the residence of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Weekly demonstrations against plans to overhaul the judicial system have been taking place across the country for nearly 3 months. The latest protests are fueled by Netanyahu's dismissal of Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, the first member of government to suggest the reform should be halted.
We are going to protect the democracy. We are here for the democracy. Bibi is not here for the democracy.
We have to show ourselves and say, this is it, up here. This has to be stopped.
I'm not sure, but we have no other choice but to fight. And that's what we need to do.
The Israeli government wants to change the current system to allow Parliament to override the decisions of the Supreme Court. The plan has divided the country. Far-right parties welcome the dismissal of Gallant, but opposition politicians say Netanyahu has crossed a red line. Israel has never faced such popular pressure on a debate about its democratic institutions.
And our correspondent, Rebecca Ritters, is still with us, joining us from Jerusalem at this hour. Rebecca, chaotic scenes last night, massive protests over weeks now. How are Israelis going to react if Netanyahu indeed freezes his controversial judicial reforms, you think?
Well, we are expecting more protests today, but as we were just saying, we are expecting also Benjamin Netanyahu to come out and potentially suspend the legislation, but it really remains to be seen, or it's a really huge question as to whether or not that would, in fact, satisfy the protesters, even if he were to go ahead and suspend the legislation or put a pause to that being pushed through the Knesset this week. Whether or not that would really be enough to take people off the streets, to get them to continue supporting the government. Definitely, as I mentioned, we're seeing a lot of members within the coalition saying that they will not accept a suspension. So exactly what would happen to the increasingly fragile coalition if he does make that move is anybody's guess at this stage. We are, of course, seeing that the announcement by Benjamin Netanyahu is being postponed, no doubt, so that he can try and get more support from the people in the coalition who are saying they will not stand with him. So it's a huge day in Israel today, huge day in this country, really an unprecedented level of protest and anger. And it's really anyone's guess what will happen as this thing unfolds over the next hours and indeed days.
Tumultuous times in Israel. Indeed, Rebecca Ritter's in Jerusalem. Thank you so much for breaking it all down for us.